All right, folks, I'm here with my friend and hero, Seth David, who's here from California for the weekend. And we met up, we're in a Capital One Cafe, which is like a bank and a Starbucks put together into one location, and let us borrow this room because we're
students. And a co-working space. It's like a bank, coffee shop, and co-working space all in one. But what we learned today is you need to be a student or a nonprofit.
Right, and I'm not making any money from this, so technically we're a nonprofit.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to chat with you about what is the underlying value that accountants or accounting consultants or even financial advisors, not stock market financial advisors, but financial software advisors create for our customers. We were just live on Facebook and we were talking about it. We touched on the idea on whether or not, presenting a financial statement or cleaning up their QuickBooks or, understanding their profitability so we can do tax planning, whether that in itself is the underlying value or is there something else? Is there something deeper, more psychological, which is the real reason why someone hire people like us? Like, what are your experiences?
Well, it's. I mean, I think the answer, first of all, is that is some of the underlying value. Of course, that's what people usually ask for first when they come in our door. Is they want their financial information cleaned up. I think you had mentioned it when we were live on Facebook that they come in and they run their balance sheet and they know it's not reliable, right? Business owners may not be accountants, they may not know accounting, but they can look at it and see that doesn't look like the right bank balances. That's not what I have in the bank, right? Yeah. They can look at their accounts receivable, maybe dig into the aging and immediately see that there's stuff there that they know was paid, right? Where there's, oftentimes I run the AR aging and there's negative amounts in there, and they're like, that doesn't make sense. And like, well, did you take a deposit from a customer and just treat it as a normal payment? That's what that can be. We go through all that and then we get that all cleaned up. So that's part of the underlying value. But I think one of the things that I've been stressing more and more is, like, you mentioned, are there deeper answers? And I think there definitely are. I think we can go a lot deeper than we really ever think to, right? We can easily go deeper than just that and say, well, so then we can use that information to make better decisions, to lay out the yardsticks and say, here we are today, here's where we want to get to. Now that we have reliable information, let's use that to project and figure out how we're going to get to where we want to be.
That's right.
But I think it gets even deeper than that. And
so before we go deeper into that, let's talk about the simplest one, which is the most common work that I do and probably you do, which is getting people cleaned up. Mm-hmm. Right? So for some context, if you're not an accountant or a business owner that has hired an accountant to clean up their accounting, for that context, all it is making sure that the historicals reflect the reality, and then when they look at a financial statement, it has some sort of standard, right? And they look at it, and you could almost be able to recite the story of the business just by looking at the numbers. That's what cleanup is, right? And then the other side is that if the financial statements are being looked like by a third party, like a bank, or preparing a tax return, that if there's an audit, the audit would be bulletproof.
That's
for lack of a better term.
My favorite word,
yeah. Which is your favorite word. And just to plug it in, Bulletproof, what is it called?
It's Bulletproof Bookkeeping with QuickBooks Online.
Right, so that's a course that he sells. I think it's like $1,500 or
it's now $1,500. It's going up $500 a quarter.
It might go up. It might go up by the time you watch this video. But it's in my opinion the best QuickBooks course out there that you can buy that focuses on QuickBooks Online and also brings in all the context in terms of what would happen if I book this way, that way, or this way, if there's an audit, whether it's a financial audit or a tax audit, and how you will be able to go back and prove those numbers in there. So I like to make a direct plug for that. But anyway, so there is some underlying value on the cleanup, but I think the challenge is that as accounting professionals, we might think that the underlying value is the fact that it was cleaned up, or the fact that we spend the time to do it instead of the customer to do it. And for the most part, the people that are just not thinking beyond that, they will charge only for the effort or the perceived value based on the number of transactions or the amount of time it took to clean up, and we kind of stop there. But if somebody has clean books, and most business owners, by the way, they don't know, right? They trust you that you clean their books.
Yeah.
They really don't know.
In fact, while you're on the subject, I have a challenge. If anybody out there watching is a business owner, or if you're the accountant serving business owners, run this test. Go through the balance sheet. And a perfect way to test if the books are really clean, because here's the one thing that's almost always wrong, is get the quarterly payroll tax returns and compare the gross wages there with your total salaries expense on your P&L, I can almost guarantee you it's not going to agree. Right. And that's your first sign that something's wrong.
Or look at the payroll liability or sales tax liability at the end of the period and see if the actual payment that you made the next month or the next quarter
does it reconcile to zero? Yeah.
Almost never.
Yeah.
Right. Almost never. Or even so, if you look at the bank account balance and you look at all the outstanding transactions, is it true that the difference between what's in the bank and what QuickBooks says or whatever, is it really, truly outstanding checks that are real, that are about to be cleared? In my experience, most small business owners that don't have a good accountant, a good technical accountant, because you can be a good accountant in theory, but then when it comes to like pressing buttons in QuickBooks, not so much. But to look at the bank balance, not to just match the bank, to match all the real outstanding checks and all the checks that are more than 90 days or 60 days, have they been properly been voided? Or did the accountant just plug in a journal entry to make it match and that's it? So that's kind of the point. I think it's a great challenge to have anybody watching this. And if it doesn't, then you know who to call, either Seth or I, to help you fix it. But I think the underlying, to go back to the cleanup, the underlying value to clean up is not that the numbers are accurate.
That's what you do afterwards.
Yeah, but I think plus is giving the person a peace of mind that is one less thing to worry about. I think that is an underlying piece of value that we don't think too much to it because it's intangible, because it's hard to quantify. And accountants, we're obsessed with numbers and measurements and quantification, and we can't quantify the fact that the customer feels good that their books are squared up. And many times our customers don't even know how to express it. Like most clients don't come to me and go, "Thank you for cleaning up my books. I feel great now that my books are cleaned up." Typically, it's not verbally appreciated, but it is there. The value is there.
But it's really, if you think about it, it's only there for a moment in time, right? Because if I get it all cleaned up as of, let's say, the end of the last month, right?
Or 12/31/2019, so we do a tax return or whatever.
Yeah, I run that balance sheet, and for that moment, it feels good. But I'm probably not ready yet to go bragging to my friends and say, "Look, this accountant is amazing. He helped me clean up the books." If anything, I'm still going to be a little ashamed to admit that I had to have somebody clean up the books, even though practically everybody needs to have somebody clean up the books if they haven't had a good look under the hood. But that's why I said it's what you do afterwards, because it's what, it's, of course it's important and it feels good, and you're right, and it's going to give somebody a good sense of security, right? They're going to feel comfortable that at least now I can look at those reports and I can rely on the information looks accurate. And that makes me feel good that now I can understand, okay, do I have enough money in the bank? Does that look right? Do I have enough receivables that can be collected? Should I be making more efforts to collect them to help improve cash flow? You can start doing things with the information. That's what I mean when I say it's more about what you do afterwards. Absolutely. And of course, what you do to continue the maintenance of those books so that you never have to clean them up again because they're always clean now, right? And it's those procedures that we put into place for the clients after we clean up. So cleanup is just phase one, right? I always say that. We have phase one is cleanup, and then phase two is maintenance, right? We have to maintain, and then phase three is projections. It's looking out into the future. Now that we have good, reliable information, how can we use that to project where we're going to go, how we're going to get there, how we're going to increase sales, to increase profits, and most importantly, like I was saying when we were live on Facebook just now, what I've started to implement with my, the clients who hire me to be their CFO, is not just projections in terms of profits and losses and even, the other parts of the balance sheet. It's more, we now have a cash flow target where I say at the end of December of this year, based on my projections, you're going to have, the initial target, if we're not already there or close to there, is basically I want my clients to have at least $100,000 in the bank, free and clear. All bills are paid, and they're still sitting on $100,000 in the bank. And now we have most small businesses. That's a good comfort level, at least to start with, right? And then we build it from there and say, okay, now do we need to invest in anything, right? Because if I've gotten to the $100,000, I can shave off 10 or 20,000 and invest it in some kind of infrastructure, something that's going to produce a good ROI, and then build that reserve back up to the $100,000, and then shave off the next 10 or 20 to do the next thing. Or maybe it's into marketing, which is how we're going to increase sales, is by spending more on marketing, whatever it is. But it gives us that money, and now we don't have to worry about borrowing money, and we don't have to pay interest on borrowed money because we're self-financed at this point.
Absolutely. Right. And one of the things I think about when you're talking about subjects are a bit beyond accounting, which is are we investing enough money in marketing or whatever? Most accounting professionals that I know anyway, they want to help their clients by helping them save money, right? And that makes sense, right? Save your money on taxes, save your money on things that you don't need to pay for, lease instead of buy or vice versa, buy this equipment, depreciate it so you can get a tax savings, a tax credit, whatever. Most accountants are partially proactive when it comes to, at least when they're prompted to, what are the ways that they can legally save money in the system. But a lot of accountants, I think I never heard an accountant tell their client, you need to spend more money in marketing. Like, it's something that...
I do it all the time.
Yeah, I know you do. And I do as well, because I spend money in marketing, and I know that if I don't spend money in, not money, resources, because at this point I spend very little money in marketing, but tons of resources. As a matter of fact, I'm extremely highly vested personally in marketing because I spend probably 20% of my billable time doing marketing activities.
Right.
And the reason for that is because most of our clients are always looking for profitability, but they always look at it in the wrong way. They think that the way to profitability is to sell more, sell more, sell more, sell more, sell more, just gradually keep increasing their market share. Unfortunately, a market share only strategy, so just growth for the sake of growth, is kind of the ideology of a cancer cell, right? Yeah. So there's not a lot of value to just growing for the sake of growing. And for the most part, in order to grow like crazy, the way Walmart did or Amazon did, you had to do through pricing. So in order for the average business to grow like crazy, if that's their growth strategy, they probably have to lower their prices in order to get more business.
Right.
Whereas in my opinion, I think that instead of maximizing my billable time to be able to grow for the sake of growth, I'm going to pull back my billable time, my client interaction time, and I'm going to invest on making my product more valuable. So instead of just growing it, I could keep the same amount of customers, but have them pay double, and I'm growing my profits, which is really what matters.
Right.
Don't they say revenue is vanity, profits is sanity, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
And that's part of the challenge. So as an advisor, I think your role shouldn't be how to save money in taxes or spend less money. Is, are you spending the right amount of resources that are going to get you that future-looking revenue? And sometimes, you're looking at what people spend with all these monthly subscriptions, right? A lot of the work that we do is we go back and look at, hey, you're spending $800 in monthly subscriptions to random things, and we encourage them to just cut them. Yeah. But then we might fail to see that 2 or 3 of those monthly subscriptions, maybe project management, CRM, some sort of marketing app, that's the stuff that brings them future revenue, or the stuff that brings them efficiency or innovation in order for them to be different in the marketplace. And I think that's really where the underlying value can be, to see things in that way.
I like to think of every expenditure that you can identify on the financial statements as a valve, right? And we can turn these valves on and off. And by the way, a great strategy that I've employed in my own company, because my line item for internet applications for a year is typically around $14,000 or $15,000 that I spend on apps. And so one strategy that I've employed, because a lot of them for me are toys that I play with, they're not things I'm actually using. So at a certain point last year, actually, I decided to really kind of button down on stuff. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to shut off all these valves, which means I actually canceled just about every single service, except the ones I absolutely knew I needed. And then, out of force of need, the ones that I really needed would get turned back on. Like all of a sudden, I would run into something in a day and realize, oh, you know what, I do actually need that other tool. Fine, so I reinstate it. Plus the fact that once you cancel these services, most of them come running after you with all kinds of offers and discounts. Exactly.
Their win-back strategy.
Exactly. Right. And that's not even the reason for doing it. The reason for doing it is find out what you really need by shutting it all off and then turning back on just the things that you need. And when it comes to marketing, like I've been saying a lot, there's 3 ways to increase sales. I can get new clients is one of the ways to increase sales. That means marketing. That means I got to spend money on marketing. marketing. I have an agency that I've employed. I tried figuring out Facebook ads. I failed at it miserably. I do not know what I'm doing. I mean, I know enough to be dangerous.
I don't do Facebook ads.
So
I can't make any money at it.
I finally said I'm going to hire an agency who knows what they're doing.
That's right.
And now they're building the strat. And what I learned also, and it's not cheap, but it's you talk about value. The first few months, it hasn't created a lot of conversions, but we gathered a lot of data. And that data is extremely valuable. Right now, I know exactly who's watching my stuff, who's engaging, who's interacting. We even figured out at first, when we were placing ads with a picture of me with my 2 dogs, with Ralphie and Hercules, we're getting a lot of engagement, but it didn't take much to figure out it was for the wrong reasons. People thought the dogs were cute.
Right.
They weren't interested in the bookkeeping services. So we've ripped that picture out of all the ads and we've changed things around. And so it's a lot of testing. It's a lot of lean startup philosophy. You test and see what works and gather the data. So that my initial thought in doing it was I'm throwing money away. And then I realized I'm not. There's value in that data. And now we use that data and we get it. And now they're balancing that. Now we're playing around with some Google ads and some other stuff. But the point is, I'm not a marketing professional. Sure, I've learned a lot, but I'd rather focus on what I do better than anything else I do, which is the creation of the content, and let the experts do what they do. So that marketing valve is one that I believe it's one of the first things I'll look at with a client and say, this is a valve we need to turn on so we can increase sales. And there's probably some other valves here on the P&L that we can shut off, that we don't need, or we can tighten them. You don't need as much spent, you know, and that's where we can, I mean, you go through any company's P&L, you can quickly find probably at least $500 to $1,000 a month
of things that are just
garbage you can knock out, and that probably covers our fee.
Or not just think about saving for the sake of saving. Is look, you're paying $500 for this app or whatever. Instead of just saying save the $500, what if you were to reinvest that resource into whatever else, Whether it's me giving you some, insight and foresight advisory type of work, or in Google Ads or whatever. It's the beauty of a business and the moving parts of a business. It's really it's not linear. It's a system, right? And there could be multiple things happening that affect each other, and sometimes you kind of need to experiment, like you said. I think you said it perfectly. We don't know what we have until we miss it, right? Isn't that a saying that says you don't know? You don't know you love someone until they leave you, or something like that. So I think that's a good point. Sometimes you kind of have to let it go and kind of see what happens and see how missed it. Where I have an employee that went on maternity leave, and I knew she was valuable. I knew it, but when she left, it was confirmed. I was like, she's very, very much valuable. She left a big gap.
You don't know what you've got till it's gone.
That's right. You don't know what you got until it's gone. That's correct. So, give you some examples of things that you've done for customers that you thought they were valuable because you did them one way or the other, but they came back to you and told you that they were valuable for some other reason, and you were generally surprised at it.
That's a good question.
To think about it, I can give you one example, which is I think about that example all the time. So about 4 years ago, somebody finds me on YouTube and sees a video that I have on lot numbers, selling lot numbers or serial numbers, and they contact me and say, look, we are an OBGYN office. We have 15 different doctors, and we have like a little lab, like a little pharmacy, and we use whatever they have, the drugs, the materials, we use it, and we use it on patients, on treatments, and each doctor needs to keep track of what they're consuming, because we do a P&L by doctor, and these materials get job costed to each doctor. Now, you can do that in QuickBooks, not easily, but you can do it. But then there was another layer of challenge, which is that you needed to have the expiration date or the lot number of the medicine being used, and you have to track it at that level. And because they couldn't figure out how to do it in QuickBooks, they had what she called a BAS. You know what a BAS is? A big ass spreadsheet. So they had this BAS where they were keeping track of all these moving parts. And I look at the spreadsheet and just all stars aligned. The spreadsheet looked like a Excel import file from your import the item list into QuickBooks. And all the lot numbers were set up in a way that I could use Transaction Pro Importer as an app to import. I can just bring them in there. And I'm like, you know what? Give me 20 minutes. And she basically watched me take this spreadsheet, clean it up a little bit, import it into QuickBooks, set it up, I created items, sub-items. Again, all this stuff comes from experience only, but the customer just watched me do it. They had no idea what I was doing. I said, just give me 20 minutes. I'm on the phone with her, live doing this. And then when I'm done, I tell her, okay, create a purchase order and order whatever items, right? So she started typing in there, all the items were there, the prices were there, the box to put the lot number was there. And then I said, okay, now go to this adjustment screen to consume them for this doctor. This is where the doctor's name is, this is where the patient's name is, this is where you put the item. And she put it in there, and it took some training. We spent maybe 3 hours on the phone. I quoted her like $750. I was charging $250 an hour then. And I thought I was making a killing, right? And then once we're done, she goes through the whole thing and tells me, Hector, give me the report by doctor, and we pull up a P&L by doctor, and all the materials are, and she looks at it and goes, you've saved me like 25 hours a week that I spend managing this.
And
like,
what's that worth? Yeah.
What is that worth? So I thought I was making a killing with $250 an hour.
Yeah.
And again, even without talking about whether they got value, it's just sometimes you can be genuinely surprised that the stuff that you do can have such a big impact. And they didn't even know how to, they didn't start with, hey, I'm spending 25 hours a week doing this. I'm just trying to figure out how to do it in QuickBooks. Right? So sometimes your knowledge and expertise and insight is worth 100 times what you think is worth, because sometimes you're living in your head thinking that my effort is what's valuable, and it really isn't.
So while you were sharing that, I thought of my kind of recent version of that, which is, I had this company call me up, and they're in Burbank where I live, and they said, look, we noticed you're local, like, can you come to our office? And I said, normally I said I can, I normally don't. Here are all the reasons why. Most importantly, even though you're local, if we do it remotely, I can record the video of the session and give you the recording. The usual pitch I give on something like that.
So you don't have to leave home.
And it's not just a pitch. The reality is there's a lot of value in being able to give them that recording, which I can't really do in person, not effectively.
Right. Yeah, true.
So anyway, but the bottom line is, I said, I'll come if you insist. I'll come in person. I said, I'm going to charge you a little more, and they said that's fine. So and it turns out I literally could have walked to their office from my home. And it was
just curious. What was the price difference between you doing it remote versus?
I charged them. I think.
What was the extra for going on site?
For a whole day, I charged them, I think, $1,500.
Okay,
right?
So and you would have done remote?
I would have done, it depends on how they wanted it done, but $1,500 is what I charge for a 5-hour support plan.
Right, okay.
So I actually gave them a deal on that basis because I gave them, well, it was probably a little more than 5 hours, right? So I actually gave them a bargain, come to think of it.
So they paid the $1,500, they weren't
$1,500 and they were fine. And I probably could have gotten them on for more support, but in the end, here's what happened. I get to their office. First of all, they were wonderful people to work with, so I really enjoyed it. So I didn't mind being there with them for the day. We had a nice lunch, but here's what happened is, they really wanted my help customizing reports, and this was QuickBooks Desktop they were using. And so we start customizing the reports, and it was like, we've been saying all day, like, work begets more work. So this is what actually happened now that I think about it. Is first they wanted a report to show them, like, the top 5 customers or whatever, right? So I started cutting up reports, based on sales and grouping it by customer and whatever. And then we just started deriving we started coming up with other derivatives on that report. And then they said, okay, we want to see for each of these customers what products they're buying, right? And we want that broken down by customer. And then ultimately what we were able to do was, in a series of reports that I helped them create, and I don't think this was the plan originally, it just evolved while I was there and working with them, was we ended up with the perfect storm of information they needed to show all their top customers and what products they were buying, and more importantly, which customers in their same top 5 weren't buying the same products. And now we can easily see what to cross-sell. And so they brought in their marketing people that day and said, we need to start writing the email campaign because these are the products we need to sell and these are the customers we need to sell them to, and boom. So that $1,500 they spent with me probably made them $10,000 or more easily because of how they were able to cross-sell. And specifically say, customers like you bought these items, we think you're going to love these too.
So a total happy accident because you didn't walk in saying...
It wasn't the plan, but that was where there was incredibly exponential value compared with what they originally brought me in to do, which was simply just to teach them how to customize reports so that they could run their own reports. But it was like, and once we did it, it was like, wait a minute, let me do this, and wait a minute, let me do that. And next thing you know, we built a whole marketing strategy around the reports I helped them customize.
And that comes full circle with a conversation about Facebook ads that you were doing that wasn't working too well, where, hey, I'm not getting customers, but I'm getting data. And now I can use that data, massage it, and then maybe use some insight, right? Maybe your marketing person help you get some insight, and that helps you build a different product, offer a different service, improve your current service offering, or maybe get a better understanding of what customers are looking for when they're looking for you, which allows you to innovate and just be a better service provider overall, right?
Yeah.
So we got 3% battery left in the camera, and I didn't bring my second battery. Seth, what would be the number one advice you would give to any service professional that's still charging based on effort? It means by the hour, but let's assume their mindset is based on effort, and they can't see past the true value that they can bring. You know, like what is that? Like a mindset heuristic where they can make a switch in their head and then be a bit more intentional on how they serve their clients or how they create value.
The number one piece of advice I can give is change your perspective, right? Stop thinking of it from your own perspective, which is what we're all inclined to do. It's natural, it's our default. But think of it from the client's perspective and really try and go deep on this. We started off the conversation by talking about what levels deep you could go in terms of the value you deliver to the client. Take it as far as you can take it and really ask yourself and answer this question is, how is 6 months to a year after working with you, how is your client's life going to be different? What are they going to be able to do now that they have you working with them that they couldn't do before?
Right.
And I mean really take this far, not just in terms of the financial statements, but think of their life outside of work and how that might change. And I'll give you just some very sort of easy examples, but I want you to go deeper than this when you think about it. The extra time they'll have to spend with their family if they want, or the 25 hours that you're going to free up for them and what they can do to be more productive, or the data that you're going to be able to uncover for them that they can think about and bring to their marketing team to use. That's where that's where the real value is in what we do. It's not in reconciling bank statements. It's in being able to get that data. That's what clients need. I've been saying this for like a year now. Clients need data. Think about what they're going to be able to do differently with their lives and their business now that they have the data that you can provide, and especially now that that data is truly reliable. That more than anything else, even if it is reliable, more importantly than that, and after that, your client has to have confidence in it. Because even if it's reliable, if for some reason they don't have confidence, you still have to take the time to get them that confidence and to prove to them. That's why I like the idea of Bulletproof, because I can prove my numbers to the client and show them. If they question something, I can drill in and show, nope, here's the proof, and we can verify every transaction. Right?
Yeah, so that was a good plug. I'm going to put in the comments below a link to Seth's course called Bulletproof for Bookkeeping with QuickBooks Online. And Seth, I'd like to say one thing. When I started my business, this is in 2008, there wasn't a lot of resources out there for me to learn to know what I'm doing. So a lot of it was sort of self-taught, exploratory, lots of trial and error, lots of invested time on understanding the underlying tools like QuickBooks and Excel and remote desktop and all that stuff that I was kind of building my tool set in order to serve my clients. And I started watching your videos maybe a few years after, and I was completely mesmerized by how you gave away all the knowledge that I was charging for. You know what I mean? Like it was just really weird to see this person that's out there giving away for free what people are normally paying me for. And I started really questioning on whether or not, it was valuable for people to pay me anyway, because they can just go to YouTube and watch one of your videos. And for that, you've always been my hero for that.
I'm surprised you weren't mad at me.
Well, it was conflicted because I was mad at you that you were giving away the information, but I was really happy that I was able to get it massaged or curated.
Right.
Because you can go to YouTube and you can see hundreds and millions of videos about anything, really. But when you get it from someone that is not teaching it because they're trying to sell you something, they're teaching it because they're passionate about it, and it's coming from a place of experience, you get different type of information. Like when you go to school, you can spend 4 hours 4 years in college learning accounting, and you will learn accounting and you will learn the fundamentals, but it's all theory, right? And then when you have an actual accountant that has applied those things, and some work and some don't, and some work if they're modified, and you have to break the rules a little bit, and you have to adapt it to your customer, and you have to adapt it to your situation, and then you have all the technology that's affecting it. When someone that does this for a living explains it, And I know there's a few amount of people that actually watch the whole videos and they learn the whole thing, and I was one of them. You learn just so much. It's really more that you can learn in any university, in any formal context. So for that, I want to thank you formally for kind of being the pioneer in our profession at sharing technical content. And in many ways, I created my YouTube channel, my webinar series, mimicking or copying what you were doing. And we have different styles for sure. We teach different things, but I think of you as the pioneer in this space, creating content, giving it away for free, and not holding back. Because a lot of these people that sell information products or the gurus or whatever, they always give you half of the information and you have to pay for the other half. And I get it, you have to make a living. But what they don't understand is that long term, if you play the infinite game, if you play the long term game, when you give the whole thing away until your camera literally stops recording, like until you're so sleepy that you can't go anymore, when you just give it away, the long-term goodwill, the long-term value you get multiplies. And when people come to you or when people come to me, they're not so concerned about price, because the trust level on the fact that I think this person knows what they're talking about, it is so high that they actually think and believe you that you can solve the problem and you can create value. And when your word is valuable, then you set the price, you are the supply, you set the tone. Right?
I had a phone call with somebody just yesterday, literally as of the day we're recording this, who, we got on the phone. She's got a tax and business service, and she says, I need somebody I can outsource bookkeeping work to. Do you do that? I said, yes. So we got into it. She's like, I got 2 clients right off the bat, and we went through it. What do they need? Blah, blah, blah. And what she said to me, which was so powerful, and it underscores what you just said, and it just validates that, once again, I got validation that I'm doing the right thing and I'm doing it the right way and I'm doing it for the right reason. She said, I didn't even think you were going to have time for me. She was so grateful that I was willing to take the time to work with her. Well, you're right. It's not even about price.
Not about price.
It's about, I know this guy can do the job. There's no question in my mind. If anything, it's almost like they're thinking, I just hope I can afford them.
Right. or am I lucky enough that I can get time off for that person?
In other words, what we do is we raise the value of our own stock so high by giving it away. There's a long term, and that's the thing. We're playing a long game. Instead of giving away half of it and saying, now pay me for the rest, we're playing a long game here, and that's the bottom line, and it pays off. It takes a little longer, but it's a solid foundation. I don't have to worry. By the time I open up my computer again, there's going to be at least 1 new lead in there for me.
Absolutely. All right, man. Thank you very much. Let's do this again. Bye.